So, what did you do yesterday? You know, I can't hear you because this is a YouTube video. It'd be great if I could. Maybe if I was to live stream this in the little comments, you could tell me what you had been up to yesterday. But I can tell you what I was up to yesterday. I was editing 2 videos. Now, I wasn't so stupid to put any band or artist music into the video because I know that as soon as I do that, even if I was to put 10 seconds into a video that was like an hour long, if I was to do that, then as soon as YouTube scans through it and they find that little piece of music, at best, they are going to demonetize the whole video, which means that the ad revenue, the money that I make, is now going entirely to the person who owns the copyright on that tune that I've used. Now, you may say that that's fair, if I'm using a piece of music in my video, I should pay them for the use of it. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. That's what we're here to find out. Because this morning, and it's a couple of weeks old, but it cropped up in my feed, was a video by the Professor of Rock, a YouTuber that I do enjoy, but I have never really mentioned. And I saw that he'd got a thumbnail with a Rick Beato video, and he got a thumbnail of Davey 504. And I got to be honest, being a YouTuber, I thought he's had 344,000 views on that. And the reason is because he's sat there in the middle, and then he's got Rick Beato and Davey 504. Maybe I should do a video where I put them back, but I'll put Rick Beato and I'll put Professor of Rock, those two. Although Davey 504 does have 13 million subscribers, doesn't he? And because he has 13 million subscribers, his videos will be generating a reasonable amount of cash. Now, you might get all jealous and think, well, why should he, be able to earn his living doing something so simple as YouTubing? Well, but maybe that's fair, I don't know. Or you could just be a little bit jealous that he's put the hard work in, because there's a lot of hard work to get to a certain point. I have 80,000 subscribers, which is a paltry amount compared to Rick Beato, Professor of Rock, and Davey 504. But he's a sizable amount compared to other people I know that have less. So the money I make isn't the same. It isn't even in the same ballpark as these guys. The money I make is just enough for me to get by, so support my family. But because I was once a professor of rock, in the old days when I was a professor of rock, and I would have to teach music business. So we were very aware that the music business was dying, and it is now dead and it's gone away. But in its place has been returned, and in its place, see, I'm very aware that one of the strictures I put on this video is that it's going to go straight up. This one's going to cost nothing. There's going to be nothing in it that could risk demonetization, but hopefully we'll get the views. If I've done everything right, we'll get a reasonable amount of views for it to be worthy of going on my channel. So I'm really trying to talk and not make any mistakes, But I did make a little bit of a hiccup there. And in the old days, I would have just left that in. But nowadays, being a little bit more sophisticated, every now and then, I might just and cut it out a little bit, which means I spend a lot of my time editing. As I said at the beginning of this video, I started the video off. I've done it again. I get my words mixed up, sometimes. So, yeah, as at the beginning of this video, I started off by saying that yesterday I spent my day editing video. Now, editing video takes hours. My God, it's boring. It's so boring. And when I'm doing it, it's like I fall asleep while I'm doing it. I've had to go to the doctors about this. I've told them about it. You see, because I fall asleep, then I wake up, then I do a bit more, then I fall asleep, then I go up and make myself a cup of coffee. And then when I go to bed, I don't sleep well. The editing does me in. It's hot. That's where the work is. It's when you've done the editing. And it takes a lot of time, and I never have much time to do it in my videos, so it's always a bit slapdash. But I always get to a point I'm quite happy. And then you upload it. And then because you've put 4 seconds of a bit of an album that you wanted your viewers to hear because it would like get the music out there and it might get them going and buy that album. They go, oh, that's really good. That's really cool. I'm going to go and buy that. If you do that to try and sell the music of the artists that you love, that you're talking about, which usually on my channel is something no one's ever heard of, and I'm taking a hit because I'm not talking about bloody Queen or the Beatles or something that gets the views. So there I am talking about some weird band or playing an album that we may know but isn't known to the mainstream. There I am promoting it, and I'm trying to edit it by just putting in 10 seconds. Maybe YouTube won't notice. Oh, it did notice it. And when it does this, it says there's issues with this video. So you click on it, and at best, that person's grabbed all the money, right? But at worst, it gets blocked, which means you can't put the video out, or it just gets blocked in certain territories. So you click on that. Sometimes it just says it's been blocked in Belarus. I don't care when that happens. Poor old Belarusians, they don't get to see my wonderful video. But if it's quite a few countries in that list, then of course that bit's got to come out. Now, I could delete the whole video and go back into the editing process, export it all out and do all that again. And sometimes I do. But YouTube has a few options that you can click on. You can replace the music with some other music that they've got, which is their stock music, or you can just cut the bit out altogether, or you can mute the music out. Now, in most contexts, I just zip that bit out, and you watch a video that has a messy edit in it, and maybe me talking about the fact that I just played something, and you're thinking, well, I never heard anything. So it messes my editing up, and I've spent time doing the editing, and that's the thing that annoys me with this. What annoys me with the demonetization is not the fact that I lose money, because every now and then I will go, let's just bang in a load of music. Let's just hammer music all the way through it. So I know it'll get demonetized, so let's make the most of it. And then those bastards that have got the copyright, that get shared out between them. Right, so the pittance I make on one of my videos, about £11 it will be usually, 11, 12 quid I make on a video, right? How do you make a living out of it? Well, there's a lot of videos here, you see. There has to be a lot of videos. I have to create a lot of videos, right? There has to be a lot. And I try and create videos that people can watch over the next 2 or 3 years. And that combined, all these little pennies that are coming in is what I'm living off. So really, a video being demonetized every now and then isn't the end of the world, right? But for me, it's more frustrating is the artistic vision I have. I'm thinking this video is great because it's got that bit, it's got a funny bit there, it's got a bit when I walk through the forest, it's got this bit where I did this comedy routine and somebody rang me up on my phone and it played the music here, I played the music, you know. So Professor Rock was moaning about it, and he was saying what we all say, and I've just said it. Why is it, when we're promoting the music, why are they still demonetizing it? All right, now this gets to an absurd point. I've had recently 2 legends on my channel. The first being Al Di Meola, and the second being Bill Bruford. Now, in Al Di Meola's case, he'd been watching the channel and he sort of was finding it funny and enjoying it. And he got in touch. He got in touch directly. He did have my number from when I interviewed him before, but he said, I want to do an interview with you, Andy. Let's do it. And that was great. Al Di Meola got in touch. With Bill Bruford, we've just been chatting backwards and forth for about 6 months now. And Bill said, come on, let's do it. So these guys want to be on the channel. Now, in Al Di Meola's case, he's got a gig at the Barbican in London. And one of the things he said, could you want to come down, Andy, which is a bloody honour. So I'm going to go down, meet Al Di Meola in the flesh, watch his gig. It's going to be incredible. But also it means that I'm going to push the gig. And I'm doing it right now. And when it gets closer, once we get to May, I'm going to be pushing that gig. Now, I'm partially going to be pushing that gig because I want you guys down there. So when I go down there, we can meet up. It'll be an amazing occurrence. Can you imagine meeting up? You know, watching Al Di Meola, meeting some of you lots, you know, having a chat, making a video out of it, and all that bit, that's going to be great. And Al does get a little bit of extra free marketing for his gig because the Barbican, in this day and age, even for a legend like Al Di Meola, is a hard venue to fill. And if these venues don't fill up, then they won't book these sort of artists. And believe you me, they are struggling. They're struggling. Right? And so we try to keep this music alive. Okay? And I'm very aware that here I am talking about this music and there's an interest and it is generating some money. And in the case of Davey 504 or Rick Beato or Professor of Rock, who have all covered either prog or jazz or whatever it is they cover, and covered this music, well, they are generating some income out of it. But that income is being grabbed. So we get this ridiculous situation where, can you imagine, once I've interviewed Bill Bruford, I've got the man there himself, right? He's out gigging with Pete Roth Trio. He's now out of the mainstream. He's deliberately out of the mainstream, but they are going to be releasing a live album. Well, you know, I will promote that live album for Bill Bruford. Of course I will. For a whole host of reasons, you know, because I love Bill, because I love the way he plays, but also because I love the fact he's stepping outside the mainstream and he's exploring other areas, and the fact that the guy has always been pushing into new areas in music, and here he is still doing it, and I want to support him doing that. That's exciting. But as we went through his career, imagine how much better that interview would have been if I could have interspersed it with the tracks we were talking about. Now, we weren't talking about Yes albums so much. We were talking about his work on the first Yes album, which people don't mention. But we also talked about his work on the Al Di Meola album Scenario, Cloud About Mercury, that he made with Mark Isham, which is one of his greatest drum performances, and people don't know about it, and he seemed to think that as well. I talked about the album he made with Jamaluddin Takuma. Can you imagine being able to put all this in the video? But what would happen is the record companies would demonetize me or block it, even though the artist is there going, I want to chat with Andy. So this is absolutely ridiculous. To put it simply, us YouTubers are here promoting this music, which is slowly dying. We're promoting it to a new audience, or a savvier audience in terms of technology, and we are having to not just pay for the section that music appears in, but over a video that could be an hour long or even an hour and a half long, they will grab everything. So all the stuff that I own the copyright, which is me now talking to you, I own the copyright of this. That is generating me money, and those bastards are grabbing it. Right? So the actual thievery that is going on here is not me using 10 seconds of their tune. If they said, oh, you've got an hour video, there's 10 seconds, so we will take 0.0015% of the revenue because that's how much it is. Or they could say, well, people are coming to your videos because our music's in it. Well, they're not. And I can tell you that now, right? They're not. If I interview someone, those videos do worse than me just talking like this. This video will do okay. It doesn't risk anything. There's no demonetization. There's no artist in here. It will do okay. Why will it do okay? Because people like the fact that I might be having a rant, because I've got a thumbnail with Rick Beato and Professor Rockin, and it sounds like I'm going to say something about them, and people will click on it, especially if I can just get that title right, which I will. I don't know what it'll be now, but I've done this now for a couple of years, and I'm starting to get a feel for it, right? I know how to bring the audience in, but also I hope that I am able to talk to camera as I am now. Look, I haven't even got my lights on in the background. This is just raw YouTubing. I have a 200 quid camera. I'm using the mics on that camera. I'm talking into it. This, for me, is the democratization of expression. It's an incredible thing. And I get to talk about the thing I love the most, which is music, right? This is a wonderful thing. And it's a wonderful thing to happen to me, and I celebrate it. And I thank God for it every single day. I'm so grateful. And I'm really grateful for you guys finding me chuntering on into a camera interesting. Every day, I had a conversation about this morning. I find this bizarre that people would want to hear me talk, but they do, you know. And I think since I have done this channel, I have got better at being able to talk like this, a talking head into a camera, and hold people's attention, you know, by taking maybe a circuitous route, you know, and also taking certain ideas and introducing other ideas and moving towards something, because you know, anybody who watches this channel, that I wouldn't be doing this video unless I had something extra to say to Rick Beato or the Professor of Rock or Davey 504. Because when I was listening to Professor of Rock this morning, he was also throwing in other stories about how he was told by a publicist to not look a certain guitarist in the eye when he interviewed them, which is incredibly difficult. And he could only speak to them when he got spoken to. That new pop band, Chapel Road, is getting all the awards. Somebody took some little kid backstage, and the security were really nasty to the little kid because she smiled at Chapel Road, and then she's, sort of justified why her crew had done this. I'm very aware of this. This twattery that exists in the music industry, I'm very aware of, and I was sort of close to it at certain points in my life. I know exactly why the companies are doing this. Why are they demonetizing videos that are promoting their product? Well, it's a funny one, this is. And I've touched on this on a video before, a year or so ago, but we're much deeper into this now. And my thinking has moved to a position where I think it's much more simpler than you think. Okay? The publishers and record companies, those who have the copyright control of these recordings, they see this as an asset, right? So they have these assets, they own assets. It's like owning a painting by Van Gogh, or, owning a company that makes, spark plugs for cars or whatever it is. Although if you're making spark plugs for cars, you're probably worrying, thinking, well, they're going all electric now. And that's sort of where the music industry is. It's changing. And what we did sell, nobody wants to buy anymore. That's the bottom line. And so these record companies, more than before, they're not going to extract money by putting out another best of whoever it is, because people aren't buying records anymore. Okay? So they have to use their assets to boost themselves up, almost like they're floating themselves on the stock market, saying, look, we have all these tunes, and these tunes are going to make millions over the next 100 years. They're going to make millions because we own them. And every time somebody tries to use them in a film or television, and they will, because these tunes have been used for the past 40, 50 years, and they will go on to be used, and we own them, we own them, and every time they use them, they're going to have to pay. Now, this might be a small amount of money, but that money is going to be coming in for the next 100 years, the next 150 years. You'd have to worry about it. 50 years ago, people were listening to the Beatles, and if we could put a Beatles tune on a film, people are still going to love it. But you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to have to pay a lot of money for it because it's an asset that we own, right? That's the way the record industry works now. They own this thing. They are going into this multimedia internet, digital world, happy in the knowledge that they own these assets. Okay, so what do we mean by that? Well, there will come a time at some point in the future where this channel may well stop. Okay, now these videos are assets. I have created a whole bunch of assets. Now, the assets here that are the most valuable are the videos that have been able to pull an audience in. And that's the magical mix between what I said, what the thumbnail was, and what the title of the video was. Now, if you know YouTube quite well, it's quite interesting because you can almost repeat that and it will work again. And you get to know it. It's not like trying to have a hit record. When I was in the music industry trying to have a hit record, it was almost impossible to think what would work. It was almost like the less you thought about it, the more it could be a hit record. It had to just happen naturally. And I take that approach into my YouTube videos. I come in here and I talk. I try not to worry about it too much. But this video has to make money. And it makes money not just by getting views, but by keeping a certain amount of viewers here so they can get to an advert. That's the most valuable thing to YouTube. And I have to try and do that. And I use all sorts of different methods to do it, but basically it comes down to the fact that I have to talk into a camera like this. This is something I have to do, right? So certain videos here, you could sort of package these videos up, maybe get someone else to do them. Maybe the AI could just drop them in and make them all really super posh. Or maybe you could just bang them out. Or maybe, at a certain point, there will be an audience that watch these videos. And if someone owned that, it will churn away making money. So the stuff I'm making here is an asset. Now, if Rick Beato made me a video, right, because he's a bloody genius or professor of rock, and he said, there you have that video, and that's the thumbnail, and that's the title, right? His ingenuity and creativity, I'm pretty sure if I put that up here, it would do a whole ton of views. That meritocracy I like. I like the fact that I wake up in the morning and it's my ingenuity and ability to talk to camera and the idea and all these things that get the views. Now, sometimes I go, I really want to do that video. I know it won't get the views, but I don't care. A lot of the time I'm doing that. A lot of the time I'm throwing the money away because I want to put music in it. This happens all the time. I'm not sat there grabbing the money first and foremost. I am totally interested in the sort of creativity and a quality being there, not sort of a normal type of quality, but something where you go, Andy's quite interested, or whatever it is. I've got a stake in what I do. I'm not slapdash in a way where I don't want them. I want them to be entertaining. I want people to go away and go, oh, I hadn't thought of that. I want them to be compelling, funny, yeah, silly sometimes, some cool music every now and then, hopefully, but fundamentally, I want them to be compelling. Right? And I will sacrifice the money I make for them to be compelling. I will sacrifice the profit for the quality of the videos in terms of what I want to do. And there's certain things I won't do. So in other words, I have standards. Now, I think this plays a big part in why the music industry are still demonetizing us. Because we are not under their control, right? We call the shots. It is us that has created our audiences, and it's us that can control the way that goes. And knowing what these types are like, if you have to have a conversation where they said, you want to... Now, I've got direct experience of people in the industry, whether it be in the music industry making records or whether it be in the drum industry, the companies. I've had a lot more experience of the companies. Some of the stuff they say and do is quite strange. They would come to you and say, we want you to put this on your channel. We want this to put this on your Facebook group or whatever it is. And it's yours and you know what works. You go, that won't work. Why? Well, that advert looks like we're selling direct to them, and I don't do that. If I just come out here straight off and just start selling something, my lot are going to switch off. They're not going to. No, I've got to put it in there where it's really. I've got to sell the worth of it to them. And as one guy once literally said to me, I have the masters in marketing. And I was like, okay then. Well, you go get your own YouTube channel and you do all the work and you do it if you're so bloody good at it. Right, so we're not controllable. They have to negotiate. They don't like that. They don't like it. Okay? They do not understand the idea of making a video which is compelling and artistic. They don't see that. They just think we sit here and we can just bang anything up and then it will market their product. That's how they think. They don't get into the subtleties. They don't think, oh, Professor of Rock does this, Rick Beato does this, Davey 504 does this, and I do what I do. They ain't got time for that. They just want it there. In other words, they're not interested in making compelling content whatsoever, right? The content of the video is less important than them selling the product. Okay? Now, what that does is it means that they look at people like us and they go, we don't like them, they're independent. And we've got no control over them. We want control. And it is that control that they are after. Now, the biggest worry with YouTube is not the demonetization. That happens to me every single day. The other day, I did a video. There was no music in it. Nothing. Right? But there was a point where I stopped talking and I thought I want an ethereal whoosh to go into that gap. So I went over to Pixabay where they have non-copyright material. And I didn't buy a tune from there because I know sometimes if you can buy some background music, that music is copyright and the writer will grab the monetization for your whole video. So I grabbed the sound effects. But this sound effect still had copyright stuff imprinted in it. It was registered for copyright. I used this sound effect on 2 videos, and both of them were completely demonetized. And in getting, couldn't trim the bit out, right? So I had to use a stock sound that they had, which wasn't a sound effect sound. It was actually a piece of music. And that's not what I wanted. I wanted a sound effect. So I had to put something in, and now it doesn't make sense. So I had to walk away and go, well, that'll just have to be a weird bit that they don't get. Something that I can do on my channel, I can do weird bits that nobody gets. And they go, what's Andy up to there? And I go, I don't know, it's just happened. It just happens to be the case, right? But for YouTube to sort that thing out and add the other bit of music, right, took 3/4 of an hour. And the other video had something else that had to be nipped out as well. That was another 3/4 of an hour. So I had to wait 90 minutes for that video to be ready to upload. I'm literally sat there eating my dinner, watching the film, but at the same time, I can't stop work because I'm having to wait and make sure these 2 videos that I'd done have had these stupid things nipped out because this woman, because it was a woman, because it had her name on it, was going to get the entirety of the money for it, right? That is how ridiculous the situation is. I feel like I'm the one being swindled. It's my content that is being... I know how this industry works. I got a copyright royalty check the other day, right? So I make my money out of tracks I've written and played on, being played on in various places, or selling. This was for actual CD sales, or believe it or not. And it was a reasonable amount of money. I could go and used it to go and buy. What did I buy with it? Oh, I bought a piece of kit for that. Our mixing desk in the background we need, so that's not quite working. So I'm going to afford to get that working full out. Brilliant. From the royalty check. We all know how this works. But I know that I'm getting a tiny amount of money off an album because there's so many people down the food chain before it gets to me. So you feel swindled then. When I was in the industry, someone says, oh, you sold 10,000 records, you've got the royalty payment for that and you get it through, and you think, oh my God, or for example, the radio. Well, if you're a musician in the UK and you haven't written a tune, but you've played on a tune, you can register yourself for a thing called PPL. And when that tune gets registered on the radio, if it's played on the radio, you will get a payment. But the PPL payment is tiny because you didn't write it. It might be that your big drums, the big fat drums are all the way through the track, but that does not matter. Right, now I get a payout from PPL every 2 years because you have to get over a £5 threshold, which is about a $6-7 threshold, to get a payment. And so you can see all the times I've been played, and this is millions and millions of people. Fair enough, you just played drums on it. But now somebody who made a little sound effect on their bloody whatever it is, Ableton Live, and uploaded it to Pixabay, but put the bloody copyright stuff in, can take the entirety of a video that's an hour long. That's the reality of this, okay? And why? Because the companies are in control. Why do I think the big companies are in control? The record companies are in control. They have more pull. Because A, they will have people that are talking to YouTube. They will have contents. You've got to be a pretty big YouTuber to have a direct contact with YouTube. I haven't got one. When my YouTube went down, I had no way of talking to them whatsoever. There's no phone number I could pick up to phone them up. Other YouTubers that you use may have that. I haven't got that. But you can bet your boot that bloody Sony has that with YouTube, and they're talking to them all day long. Right? But there's something much more profound when you look at it. Right? There's something much more profound in this, and it is the copyright strike. The copyright strike is not the same as demonetization. I've had one. So the copyright strike is where somebody rings up and they said, this person has used our copyright, we don't like it. So you've got to put a copyright strike in. It's not YouTube that does it. It is someone contacting them and saying, because that's the only way they'll know. I had a copyright strike when I live streamed the Black Sabbath gig. I live streamed me watching it and talking about it. And actually in shot, I had a laptop. And you know how big it was in the background. And then on that screen on YouTube was the gig. It was like about that big in the background. And because that screen was running the Black Sabbath gig live stream with no sound, right? I had a copyright strike. My channel shut down. The live stream just shut down. And then I looked and said, you've got a copyright strike. Now, if I get 3 copyright strikes, my channel's gone, the videos have gone, everything's gone. I've gone. If I try and set up and do it again, I can't. It basically assassinates you as a YouTuber. Right? Now, who could do that? Now, I don't think if I tried to enact a copyright strike on anybody, it would have that effect. It's when these big publishing companies come up and say they used our content and we don't want it used. Copyright strike. The copyright strike to me is absolutely unethical and pointless because they have this demonetization, But there are some people who will block videos. The Eagles are famous for doing this, for example. But the copyright strike, what that tells me is that those big players have got they've got a lot more control over YouTube than we would think. And this brings me to something that does worry me. Here in the UK, we have the BBC. Now, the BBC creates content, mainstream content, on terrestrial television, and also you have iPlayer so you can stream stuff online. Now, here in the UK, for you to watch any sort of television, you have to have a license. So you pay that license. It's quite a lot of money. It's around about £200 a year. And then you can watch what you want. Now, a friend of mine, their kid had accidentally gone onto iPlayer, the BBC online streaming thing, and watched a little bit of it. The BBC were there, threatening them with £1,000 fine. Luckily, they were able to talk to them because it was the first time it happened. They let them off, but they had to go and get a license and all that sort of stuff. So it feels like extortion. Now, the BBC, I feel, is not independent in its viewpoint, let us say. It is supposed to be independent, but it doesn't seem like that to me. Let us just put that there. So they are failing at the moment. And so the BBC at some point will probably think, well, the reason we're failing is because everyone's watching YouTube. And a lot of their stars, a lot of celebrities that are on television are jumping out and setting up YouTube channels. So heroes of mine, like the comedian Harry Hill, has just recently set up a YouTube channel. And he's done the first season. And it's when the first one came out, we all watched it. Then I saw the views drop. And I thought, I wish I could say to Harry, your views are dropping because you're trying to do a TV series on YouTube. It won't work. But who's going to listen to me? What do I know? But there they all are. And I'm pretty sure the BBC will move over to YouTube at some point. So at some point, we are going to have more and more large companies that are not independent. They have pressures because, say, they represent a certain political affiliation, or they're supported by, money extorted out of us, here in the UK to support them if you want to watch anything on television. So YouTube, it could be the case that the reason why they're demonetizing us is because really they do not want us to be marketing their assets. They want to be marketing their assets. And they want control of how their asset is marketed. And so, in the long run, where certain artists who've got to 80 years old have now sold their catalogue off to this company, knowing that the money that will be made over the next 100 years, that there is an argument for the long game, i.e., let's just stick this out. Those guys will go away. And at some point we will emerge, and they probably are already, building up their YouTube channels and being able to try and do what we are doing here. Now, this has happened before. It happened on MySpace. 20 years ago, I was playing in progressive rock bands. I was also doing drum clinics. I was making albums. And I set a MySpace up. And on that MySpace, you could put up, I think, 4 tracks. I linked it to my website, and I was literally getting tens of thousands, if not millions of views. There was no Bandcamp. There was no way of selling product. It was difficult to make it all add up. But what was happening is certain artists were coming out, bypassing the mainstream way that you get a band signed, in other words, bypassing the label. And they were able to create an audience for themselves. And do you remember that phenomenon on YouTube where you had these girls who were sat at the end of their bed, strumming an acoustic guitar and doing cover versions? And a number of those got signed up because they found a loophole in the system. Here, I would say that we could say it would be Lily Allen would be one artist that came up in that MySpace boom. Who else? Who else? My brain's not kicking into gear. The big bands that have gone on to have huge careers. One of the bands I was actually, when I was recording the first Frost album, they were working on product with this band that I wish I could remember what they were called. That's what happens when you get old. It's irrelevant anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is that period where artists are able to bypass the record company, to get their name out there, to have their product out there, to sell it themselves, to be able to do the whole thing and basically build the audience without a record company, they sort of came in and they took over, didn't they? They took it over. And what we had was, if you think about Napster as well, and that whole thing that happened back then, the outcome was that we ended up with iTunes. And now the music distribution was no longer in the hands of the music industry, right? It was in the hands of someone else, and that's now happened. The streaming services, the music services, all of it, YouTube, which is one of the biggest, distributors of music now, is not part of the music industry. That's why I say the music industry is over, it's dead. But I think they're playing the long game. That's my point, is that they don't want us here. That's the bottom line. They don't want these independent here. And it could be over the next few years that it is made more and more difficult for us to operate in the way that we have. And I think that will be a shame, because much like on MySpace, you could go out finding artists and you could do all sorts of things, in terms of listening to music, and you could contact them direct, and, they could put their gigs up and you could go and see them live and all that stuff that was absolutely wonderful until MySpace was taken out. All right. That could well happen on here, where YouTube just is turned over to, channels which seem to you like they're the same as what you are watching now, but are actually owned. All right? And they're not down to just one individual who's a bit batty with their bonkers vision of what they want to do. Okay? And I think once that happens, that mad place between irrationality and the need for popularity, that area, right? That area where creativity lives, you will lose the creative aspect of the YouTube video. What do you mean, Andy? You're being too up yourself now. No, I think it's the case. I think it's the case. I think it's an art to make a good YouTube video. And I think if you can do one that's right, it lives off the music of the past in the same way hip-hop does. It's, I hate to say a regurgitation, because it's not a regurgitation. It's a fusion of storytelling with the visceral joy of rock and roll. That's what's going on here. That's why it seems more interesting than just buying the album. That's why you feel like you know, that thing when somebody watches a video like mine and then I'm chatting about a certain band and I reignite their love of it, or someone who's never heard the album before, they go, I've never heard of this. What's this Mavish Structure, Andy, of which Andy speaks? And they go and check that out. Oh, I love this, right? That is a different thing to what was happening in 1972 when the Mavish Structure came out, and you know, Columbia were trying to push them with all the, you know, their magazine adverts and getting them to play with all the stuff that they used to do in the old days, which is redundant now. It's really hard to get your head around this fully. The only way to truly understand it is to realise that the music industry is over and there is no music industry. These companies that own the catalogues of artists, what used to be called record companies, they own the songs, but more importantly, they own the actual masters. They own these. And artists are selling them back to them. And they'll own those like, it'll be like a media store that you pay for. That's what it will be. Now, that will be okay as long as us YouTubers have the democratization that exists at the moment to be able to come on and try and create content as I am now. And I'm trying to make a reasonably long video, but there's nothing here. There is nothing but me. There's not even a light or a microphone. It's just a camera and me talking to you. Now, some of you are here at the end of the video now. You've watched it all the way through. And I thank you for watching, but I hope that you watched it because you're sort of interested in what I was saying. Right? That is important. Not what I've said, but the fact that this exists is important. It's important. So we have to keep an eye out. We have to be vigilant for the big companies coming along and screwing it over. And to me, get to be replaced by some other bloke who comes on and talks in a much more erudite and media-friendly voice and says, have you ever checked out the wonderful recordings of the Mahavishnu Orchestra? Maybe you've never heard them. They existed between 1971 and 1973, and in that period of time, they blew away audiences with their cunning mixture of jazz improvisation, loud rock and roll, with a tad of Indian classical music as well. I quite enjoyed doing that. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll go for the job, you know. And I won't do anything contentious or silly. I'll just come out and impart knowledge. Right? And then I will be able to play the track because they will own the video. And then they have their hands on the monetization directly. Directly. Right? So how do you get there? How would you get there? Even though it seems counterintuitive for them to try and block me when I put the reasons on. But now it seems obvious, doesn't it? It's obvious why. And so with that, we see their intention. So, we're at the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you liked it, like it. If you want to see some more, subscribe. If you want to become a member of either Patreon, you can become a free member of Patreon. I'm so deep in thought about this, I can't even get the little end of the video speech out. So Patreon, you can go there free. There's free content. There's also paid content. I'm actually on a little bit of a roll, making a lot of paid content at the moment because they haven't been getting that much, really, poor things. Oh, you can become a member here, which means you get to see the videos earlier, and you get to see some special content as well. You know how it works. I've also got a PayPal tip jar, and this is how I'm making my money. And if the money's not there, I'll stop and go and do something else. I'll be back to teaching drums again. Oh, don't let that happen. Go on, stick a bit of money in for us.